The Babylon Project was our last best hope for Scott. A self-contained podcast, 1 hour long, located on the internet. A place of fun and discussion for Babylon 5 fans everywhere. A shining beacon in cyberspace, all alone in the night. It was the dawn of the 20th anniversary of Babylon 5, the year the Great War to free Bab 5 came upon us all. This is the story of the last of the Babylon podcasts. The year is 2014. The name of the place is the Babylon Project Podcast.
This is Maggie Egan, your ISN news anchor, and you're listening to the Babylon Project podcast. Thanks for listening.
Hi there, Babylon 5 fans. Welcome tonight to another wonderful time with the Babylon Project podcast. I am Raul Wybera, and I am sitting here with Jim Arrowood. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
Oh, sorry. I was kind of wandering around in the wilderness a little bit.
Okay. Oh my! How are you?
And I'm
doing,
hearing
sir?
Voices. I don't know what this is about.
As long as they stay in your head, you're okay.
No, I'm doing very well.
Oh, well, was that by any chance a hint to what episode we will be talking about tonight?
Maybe. Yes. Probably.
Maybe. Yes, tonight we are talking about Voice in the Wilderness, and we're doing part 1. We will be splitting it up between parts 1 and parts 2.
Yes.
Frankly, this is a very dense episode.
Yes.
Both of them are.
Both of them are. They're related. However, they're also in many ways very different.
They're separate in so far as the events standing, except, of course, the cliffhanger ending.
Yep.
But both episodes tell a single story.
Correct.
And this is absolutely a fan favorite episode. Of course, it's also a Joe Straczynski favorite episode, too.
Aha.
You know, actually, this episode, people who've heard me talk about other shows on either their podcast guesting or on websites where we've talked about shows, or even in my own blogs, about how great science fiction television, or just great television in general, doesn't depend on just great characters or just great stories. It has to have both, and both are equally important.
Yes.
Voice in the Wilderness, and Babylon Squared, and Chrysalis, and Quality of Mercy right before... actually, all of them really do exemplify that principle. You have fantastic characters. You could make a real good argument on how character-driven the story is, but it is also incredible plot work and plot development. So you can equally make an argument on how well plot-driven it is.
Absolutely. Well, and then after watching these last several episodes of the season, one can understand why episodes such as Believers may not be fan favorites.
Exactly. In fact, you bring up a point. You and I have both said several times that, we might consider the particular episode weak, but we're considering it weak by Babylon 5 standards.
Yes.
It's still good storytelling. It's still good television. It's just, by B5 standards, it's at the lower end of it.
Right.
These episodes coming up, these final episodes of the season really exemplify exactly what we mean.
Right.
And I guess the best way of addressing that is for you to tell us a little about it.
All right, here we go.
Archive. Access. Initiated.
Babylon 5 orbits a planet known as Epsilon 3, which is thought to be lifeless. When some seismic activity is discovered, it is decided that the planet should be explored to learn more about it. A team being led by Dr. Tasaki takes a shuttle down to the planet where they discover a large fissure that is believed to have been artificially created and then made larger by the seismic activity. As the shuttle descends towards the fissure, an energy discharge causes damage to the shuttle, and a Star Fury is dispatched to help the crippled shuttle return to the station. Following this first contact, the planet begins emanating a steady energy pulse that is believed to be a beacon. Not long after, Sinclair sees the holographic image of an unidentified alien who asks for his help. Later, Londo also sees this appeal for help. Ivanova discusses yet another mission to look at the planet with Dr. Tasaki. She tells him that he is not to get too close to the planet and that the Star Furies that will be escorting him are not able to fly into the atmosphere. Tasaki disobeys orders and enters the upper atmosphere. As this happens, 3 missiles streak towards the shuttle. Tasaki manages to avoid being hit by 2 of the missiles, but the third one impacts and damages the shuttle. While Tasaki tries to maintain control of the shuttle, another trio of missiles launches towards the shuttle. All the while, Ivanova has been monitoring the situation and orders the Star Furies to open fire on the missiles. They manage to destroy or divert the missiles, and Ivanova directs the shuttle out of the atmosphere. Later, as Tasaki is debriefed, he tells Sinclair and Ivanova that he was able to pinpoint the point of origin of the missiles. They came from a crevice that is 5 miles deep and are probably leftovers from an old planetary defense system. Sinclair decides that because of the potential for first contact and the threat level to the station, he and Ivanova will take a shuttle down themselves. Deep inside the planet, Sinclair and Ivanova manage to avoid more defensive traps and enter into a massive cavern with machines that are miles in height. As they continue to explore, they find the same alien that contacted Sinclair earlier connected to a machine. The alien again appeals to Sinclair for help. Sinclair and Ivanova manage to disconnect the alien from the machine and launch for a return to the station. As Garibaldi monitors the situation, a ship comes through the jump gate and the episode ends with "To be continued." In another story, an elderly Minbari comes on the station looking for Delenn. At the same time, Delenn and Londo are finishing up some negotiations that end with both parties satisfied. Not long after, as Delenn enters her quarters, the older Minbari, Draal, surprises her with his visit. Draal is one of Delenn's former teachers and a close friend. She invites him in and they begin catching up on old times. Delenn finally asks Draal why he is visiting her on the station. He explains that he doesn't recognize Minbar with so many changes taking place, saying that the Minbari people have become lost. Draal tells Delenn that because of this, he has decided to go to the sea. Delenn tries to talk him out of this because she knows that it means she will never see him again, but he is determined. Later, Delenn takes Draal to meet Londo, who is studying Earth cultures in general, as well as a particular song that has him puzzled. In a third plotline, Sinclair learns about massive rioting taking place on Mars. The rioters have taken some heavy weapons and the situation is becoming dire. The next morning, Sinclair and Ivanova discuss the situation, and Ivanova points out that Garibaldi is a Mars native, and this will cause him great concern. Garibaldi tries to get a communication line to Mars, but this has become all but impossible as Earth Central has ordered a communications blackout. So since he cannot go through regular channels, he asks Talia for help. Garibaldi explains to her that before being assigned to Babylon 5, he was involved with a woman named Lise Hampton, but they had a falling out over some personal matters, and he has regretted leaving ever since. He also tells Talia that he thought she could help because he knows about a Psychor facility on Mars and thought that she might be able to get a signal through where others could not. Even though Talia is not happy that he knows about the Psychor facility, she agrees to try to help him. Later, Talia does get in contact with Psychor on Mars. The administrator refuses to allow Garibaldi to have an open line, but agrees to look into the whereabouts of Lise and let her know. While Garibaldi monitors the situation with Epsilon 3, Talia informs him that the report from Mars is that Lise is not listed among the survivors, nor can her sources access a list of casualties. Lisa's whereabouts remain unknown. Garibaldi thanks Talia for her help.
Character files opened.
Okay, thank you so much, Jim. And if you caught any chuckling, that's because Jim pre-records the summaries, and I used to do a clap into the microphone to put a spike on the recording so we can do some time syncs. Mm-hmm. And Jim sent me a clapper from, where did you find that?
I think it was on Amazon.
Oh, wow. He sent me a clapper like they use on television, that little arm that clacks. The purpose for that is to sync the video to the sound. Anyway, Voice in the Wilderness.
Yes. So we have a few guest stars that are, of course, worth mentioning.
Very much so.
And start out with Louis Turenne. Am I saying that correct?
Turenne or Turin with the two N's.
He was on as Drawl, of course, and will come back again later on as a character named Brother Theo, who was a beloved character.
I liked him as Drawl, but yes, I'm one of the ones I liked him better as Brother Theo, and boy, I wish we could have seen some more of him.
I agree with you there on the Brother Theo part, but I definitely like John Shuck better as Drawl later on.
Yes, I agree with you there as well.
Yeah. So all in all, he had 5 appearances on Babylon 5.
Mm-hmm.
And he starred in a couple of other things that are, I guess you could consider geeky. He was on The Incredible Hulk in 1980.
I thought you were going to say at The Edge of Night.
No. No, I didn't. I said geeky, not freaky.
No, soap opera, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And he starred in another thing he was a guest star in another thing that I would like to see myself called I, Leonardo, A Journey of the Mind. And I'm definitely going to be looking that one up.
Like you, I have not seen it, but it's one that really needs to be in that list. Yeah, he was on Babylon 5. He's still around, but he was in Babylon 5 more toward the end of his, at least, film and television acting career.
Mm-hmm. We have another guest star. Would you like to talk about him?
Yeah, so we also had Kurt Lowens. He was... Now, we don't really hear him talked about by name yet, but he plays the character Varn, who is the being that's in the machine, in the Great Machine.
Yes, the mysterious alien.
And he also came back for an episode in Crusade.
Mm-hmm.
If you look through his credits, Alien Nation, Murder, She Wrote, MacGyver, Newhart, and a Knight Rider, and it just goes on and on, back and back, further and further.
Yeah, all the way back to 1959.
All the way back to 1959. This guy is just one of those great character actors that was a go-to guy for almost any role. You look at the types of roles he played, and he could be anything.
Yeah. We also had, as not a guest star, but as a, what did they call him on the show? They don't appear in the opening credits. They appear more in the end credits.
Featuring.
Yes. Jim Ishida, one appearance on Babylon 5, and his other credits are not really related to sci-fi. He's done numerous things, but mostly Babylon 5 is his only science fiction appearance.
Yeah. I knew I had seen him before. Well, he was in Back to the Future.
Okay.
I knew I had seen him before, and I think I know where, and I'm embarrassed to say, and it was mostly because my mom watched it, and also because it was on when I was at the co-op at St. Louis U when I did some of my undergrad work there. Days of Our Lives. You couldn't escape it.
I know. Those soap operas can suck you in. Well, at least they used to. Do they even have them anymore?
As far as I understand, they do.
I haven't seen daytime television in so darn long, but I do remember a stint when I had some kind of an illness that I had to stay home. Started watching the one with Susan Lucci. What is it, All My Children or something like that?
No idea.
Yeah, well, anyway, I can testify that a soap opera can suck you in if you're not careful.
He had a guest appearance on A-Team.
Yeah.
Scarecrow and Mrs. King. So there's bits and pieces where I know I have seen him before.
Yeah. See, now some of these shows that you mentioned, I never got to see because I was running a movie theater.
Yep.
So I'll tell you what, I didn't see a whole heck of a lot of television during the 80s.
Mm.
So,
Now, we did have one other name that really needs a mention, and it's because she's going to be reappearing throughout the series, and that's Catherine Cressida.
Yeah.
Cat the bartender.
As the bartender, okay. Most of the rest of her credits are voice credits for video games and parts on
cartoons, animation, anime. Yeah.
As computers and so forth and so on.
And she has got a lot of credits in that regard. I actually know her voice, sort of at least, primarily from Dexter's Laboratory. I've got a 10-year-old boy. What can I say? There's no avoiding Dexter's Lab.
Okay.
She voiced Dee Dee. She wasn't the only one voicing it, but she voiced Dee Dee for a whole bunch of episodes.
See, I'm not familiar with that show, so
it's funny. It's a check it out. It was on around the same time as I guess we were getting repeats, but sort of around the same time as Powerpuff Girls.
Oh, okay. Well, should we dive right into Voice in the Wilderness, Part 1?
Instead of voice acting?
Initiating plot analysis.
I love the opening, in particular, the elevator gag.
Oh, yeah.
Now, they've been working up to that one all season.
Yes. Over and over and over again. So Talia, she's waiting for a lift tube, and here comes Sinclair.
Yep.
And Talia's a little paranoid at this point.
Always running into Garibaldi. It's like he's always there waiting for her.
Yeah. So Sinclair says, hey, that's not possible. It can't happen all the time. The lift tube opens, and who is standing there but Garibaldi with this smirk on his face?
Yep.
And then you have to begin to wonder, who is the actual telepath here?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I like the I'll take the stairs.
Yeah.
I'll join you part.
Yeah. Yep. They give up on that.
The first lift tube gag between them was actually in the very first episode. So It literally has been building to this from the beginning.
It's a great running gag. Does it?
Yep.
Does it continue on?
I don't remember. I think it kind of ends here.
Okay.
Because you've got Babylon Squared, which is really more off station than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got Quality of Mercy, which is Franklin centered, and Chrysalis, he's not really in any sort of shape to. Well, he does have an incident in a lift tube, but it's certainly not a gag.
Right. Okay. So we have the shuttle headed for
Epsilon.
the planet Epsilon 3. Epsilon 3?
3. Mm-hmm.
Epsilon 3. You point out it's an atmospheric capable shuttle.
Yep. You
And
know, it's
all this-
like the ones that we'll see in the next full episode, not the second part, but Babylon Squared, those kind of boxy shuttles.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if those are atmospheric capable, but this one definitely, has the airfoil surfaces for atmospheric flight.
Well, it definitely looks a lot like a proposed replacement for the space shuttle that I've seen.
Yes, except this was developed in 1994.
Aha.
Wouldn't be the first time NASA or JPL borrowed from Babylon 5, though. Remember, they wanted to borrow the Star Fury design.
Yes, that's correct. So then we get a bright light and...
Bright lights!
No, wrong
Sorry.
show. The Gremlins.
One of my favorite Christmas movies.
I ran that movie at the theater,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know, the print that I had must have had Gremlins that came with it, because every night it would break at the same spot.
Ha!
I swear the film would break at the spot where Mrs. Deagle got launched off of her lift chair.
Oh, gosh, one of the funnier parts.
Yeah, and landed in the snowbank. By the time I finished repairing the film for 2 weeks, Mrs. Deagle would go shooting upstairs, and then it would cut straight to her with her top part in the snowbank. Yeah, it's pretty sad. I tried to cut as few frames out of the film as I could, but yeah, it broke down every night at the same spot.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
So at any rate...
But in this case, the light is more of a beacon. Actually, at first you're wondering, it's like, okay, what is this? Is this some sort of energy weapon attacking, that's attacking the shuttle or what? But everyone had thought Epsilon 3 was a barren planet without life.
Yeah. And so now we find out that there's at least some kind of activity going on, because the reason they're going down there and investigating in the first place is there's some unusual seismic activity.
Yep, and Dr. Tasaki is all geared up to turn around and head back the next day. The guy does not know when to quit.
Yeah, what is with him? I mean, he still continues to go towards the planet even after all this stuff is going on, and then he comes back and wants to make another trip down. I got to question, scientific discovery is a great thing, but
as far as he puts it, it's a good way to go.
Yeah, well,
in fact, we'll let him tell it himself.
Okay.
Dr. Tasaki!
Lieutenant Commander.
What was it?
I have no idea.
We were told the planet we're orbiting is stable, safe, and uninhabited. Now it appears to be none of those things.
Incorrect. We still don't know for sure if anyone's actually alive down there. The seismic activity planetside could have triggered an automatic system of some kind. We'll know more once we go back down.
What are you going to do now?
In order, process the data we collected from the power burst, then call my wife from Proxima. She loves mysteries.
This doesn't worry you in the slightest?
On the contrary, it scares the hell out of me. But what better way to go out than in the cause of advancing scientific knowledge?
Is this a multiple choice question? 'Cause I have some ideas.
Previously, Sinclair had said he had to go and mediate some negotiations.
Uh-huh.
And we find out who he is mediating for, and we get kind of a pleasant little surprise here.
Yes, for once, we get a break from the Narn.
Yes.
Londo and Delin negotiating.
Yeah, and they come to an agreement, and that seems to be happy for everybody, and it's all settled.
Yep. Oh, in fact, Londo even notes it himself, how much more pleasant it is to negotiate with someone that's a little more reasonable.
Yeah, that's exactly how he put it. course, we're not supposed to know, but we do know who he's referring to.
Uh-huh.
As a matter of fact, Delenn also knows who he's referring to.
Yes.
And makes I would say a half-hearted effort to defend him.
Yeah.
In this quote, though, the one that's coming up, Londo tells his view of the relationship with the Narn.
Before we play this, one thing I've got to note, this episode is probably, for really memorable quotes, it is probably the top episode of the season so far.
Yeah, we're gonna have quite a few this episode. So
anyway, Londo explains, shall we say, the relationship between the Centauri and the Narn as follows.
Yep.
What a pleasure it is to deal with someone reasonable. Negotiations are so much more enjoyable when certain individuals are not here to interfere.
I would suggest that there is a difference between being unreasonable and being angry. Ambassador Gicard is angry much of the time, but even the greatest anger fades with time.
My dear Ambassador Delenn, I am sure that for you this is true. But for Gicard and his people, they will do all that they can to destroy us until the universe itself decays and collapses. If the Narns all stood together in one place and hated all at the same time, that hatred could fly across dozens of light years and reduce Centauri Prime to a ball of ash. That's how much they hate us.
You don't have to respond in kind.
Of course we do. There's a natural law. Physics tells us that for every action, there must be an equal and opposite reaction. They hate us, we hate them, they hate us back. And so, here we are, victims of mathematics. Ambassador?
Victims of mathematics, huh?
Yep.
It sums it up, though.
Yeah, we get a summing up of exactly how they feel, and we will see more about this in the future. So, in the meantime, we get some news from the Mars colony.
Yeah, some rather blatant exposition from Susan.
Yes.
In fact, if you want to be honest about it, it's probably the weakest part of the episode.
Yeah, it doesn't tell us a whole lot other than there is communications blackout for some reason with Mars, and that there's apparently some unrest.
Yeah, we'll get, I'm probably being premature in judging it as far as this blatantness, because it does end up being sort of a side story throughout this episode.
Well, yeah, and we do get a few of the blanks are filled in a little while.
And it does serve not only, the whole situation with Mars is something that will be continuing throughout the series.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And it does set up part of the reasoning for what happens in the next part of episode, Voice in the Wilderness Part 2.
Right.
But then we do get to like I said, one of my favorite characters, and I don't care who's playing him, but I love Drawl, the character himself.
Yeah. He arrives on the scene and starts right out with a pop quiz.
Yep. What is the third principle of sentience?
And the answer is self-sacrifice.
The capacity for self-sacrifice.
Right.
Yeah. And, I will say this. One of the things I do like about Drawl is the effect he has on Delenn. Because when we've got Drawl here, she is, except for part where we break some of the news to her, but we see a happier Delenn. She's almost girlish.
Yeah,
in a Minbari sort of way.
Yeah, for the really the first time in the series, we've seen her smile about something and be happy about something. But, I think we realize it throughout the series, she doesn't get a whole lot of visits from friends.
Yeah.
When she does get a visit from a friend, it usually winds up not being good, as we remember from Mayan,
Yeah. Now, one thing I do remember there being complaints. I'm brain going back 25 years-ish. I do remember some complaints when we see Delenn in some of the later seasons. There's, where did all of the sudden girlishness come from? Especially as her and Sheridan's relationship develops.
Yeah.
And the truth is, we see a side of that here.
Oh, yeah.
We do see a lighthearted, dry sense of humor peeking out of her already in this. So it's not really something new. We just get the chance to see a different side of her as a new type of relationship develops for her.
Yeah, she does have feelings,
Uh-huh.
So anyway, we get
some of that exposition about Mars that you mentioned.
Yeah, Susan and Sinclair sit down. Is it for breakfast?
Uh-huh, it looks like breakfast, or maybe lunch.
What the heck is Susan bringing to the table? It looks like salad with a cup of yogurt turned over on top of it or something.
Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
The only thing we know she's not bringing to the table is coffee.
Well, that eliminates breakfast then.
Well, no, they don't. Apparently Mars is in open revolt, and the primary organization behind it is called Free Mars.
Free Mars. We're going to have a fight for Mars independence. They want out from under EarthGov's influence.
Yeah, we've mentioned in the past how it's come up that Santiago is having some problems back Earthside. Well, yeah, it's gunfire and heavy weaponry, so problems is a bit of an understatement.
I love that report they sent from Olympus Mons.
Uh-huh.
Yes. The tallest mountain. Isn't it the biggest and tallest volcano in our solar system?
That we know of. Olympus Mons, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We get some important information, though. Sinclair is born on Mars.
Right.
And we also know that Mike has had some strong ties to Mars.
Yes. But Sinclair, he's not as worried because he doesn't have any family there anymore.
Right.
And we also find out that neither does Ivanova. Apparently she did at some point.
Yeah. With Mars up in arms, we do switch back to Delenn and Draal. And he mentions a name, Rothan, that is important to remember.
Okay. We do find out, though, that he, Rothan, is one of Delenn's former teachers also.
Yep. But he also has an important role. He's Great Council.
Right.
Don't forget that.
Okay.
And with the craziness that is happening, she hasn't turned down the Triluminary yet, has she? She hasn't been given it.
She hasn't been given it yet.
Yeah, that's in Babylon Squared when they're off.
Correct.
Yeah, Rothan is part of the Great Council, but I'm going to be careful not to spoil, though we are spoiler friendly.
Yeah,
here.
This is a really critical part of it.
So I'm going to, I'll just leave it that we see Rothan several times, and he is one of her allies.
Yes.
We also learned that not only is there discord on Earth, but there seems to be some discord back on Mimbar as well.
Right.
Draal's concerned that there's the increasing tension between the religious and warrior caste, but the Mimbari as a whole are just becoming more self-absorbed.
Right. Now, I wonder here if Draal isn't just upset over maybe progression of the way things are, a natural progression.
I don't think so, because when you look just at the fundamental of Mimbari psychology, they really don't focus much on themselves compared to humans.
Mm-hmm.
There's almost a hivishness about them.
Okay.
So I don't know. But then he drops the real bomb on her. Forget the troubles back home.
Right.
He has reached a point where he has to follow, as he puts it, the calling of his heart.
Yeah.
And go to the sea.
Yeah.
Shades of Tolkien's elves.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of, when they tired of Middle-earth, they went across the sea back to Valinor.
Of course, now, Drawl wouldn't be referring to Tolkien.
No.
So what is he referring to?
That actually is a good question. I mean, is this a sojourn, a hermitage?
Yeah. We can assume from the later conversation there that he is going to the Sea of Stars. So he's going to go wandering amongst the stars.
Alone and not come back.
Right.
I mean, that part, the not come back part, is definitely.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's still being done in some concept of service. Because he makes reference of how he'll still be of, still be of use, still be of service.
Yeah, I remember that.
Which almost makes me wonder. Oh, now here's a thought. It almost makes me wonder if we're not looking at something that's similar to what we see with Grail.
Yeah,
Gaiac.
Yeah.
Gaiac's sojourn, his quest.
Thomas's quest now.
Thomas's quest now.
Yes.
Taking him to the stars. And the kind of honored position that carries amongst the Minbari.
Well, it could very well be. He might be on some sort of quest. He doesn't. He's not specific about what it would be,
or where or how. No. And I reviewed Straczynski's notes and couldn't find anything to give a clue.
Well, perhaps he doesn't realize that he has reached the destination of his quest before he even goes.
True, but now you're skipping ahead to next.
I'm trying to skirt around it a little bit, but he never does leave, so
he doesn't, but he does.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a short switch. Londo is actually weaving in and out of this story throughout the episode. He kind of becomes a string that ties it together in some ways, because he's aware that something has been found down there.
Yeah.
Not a surprise.
No.
And he has a very important question for Commander Sinclair.
Correct.
Ivanova to Sinclair.
Sinclair.
They're on their way. I'll meet you in control.
I'll be there. If you'll excuse me, Ambassador,
Yes, I know. Commander, what will you do if you find anything of value down there?
The odds of that are pretty small. It's probably just an automated homing beacon left over from hundreds of years ago.
Yes, but if it isn't, will you tell me?
No.
Just making sure we know where we stand.
I love that. No.
I wonder if Sinclair wasn't channeling Kosh.
Oh, gosh. That's a... Oh, my. That's certainly a possibility.
Yeah. Even when it's serious, Londo manages to interject a little bit of happiness into the plot.
And he seems to have that as his task for this episode, because we'll be pulling up some more Londo quotes before we're done tonight.
Oh yeah. We move back to Garibaldi.
Yes, who is a total basket case.
Yeah. He is very, very concerned about a former love interest of his named Lise Hampton, who is back on Mars.
And hadn't parted with her in the best of terms. I guess is a good example of that fine line between love and hate, as far as the way they split up. She did not want to come to Babylon 5 when he had what basically was his last chance in his career. Garibaldi has just put off calling her. He always felt and known that he should, but now with everything going on Mars, he is desperate.
Yeah.
So who does he turn to?
Yep, he goes to Talia. And at first, when he asks for her help to get in touch with somebody on Mars, of course, he can't go through normal channels because communications are down. And he has...
In fact, he tried normal channels.
He has tried, yes. And then he goes to Talia and asks for help. And then basically winds up spilling his guts.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I don't know, if Lise wasn't so important to him, I would have said that it was not within Garibaldi's character.
That he was out of character is in character with respect to just how out of sorts he was here.
Yeah, he really wanted to get a hold of this girl, so.
Uh-huh. And the reason he goes to Talia is there is a classified Psy-Corps base at Syria Planum.
Yeah. She's not happy that he knows about it.
No, Talia wants to know how did he find out about it, and of course the other question, if it's such a high-level secure base, how did Talia know about it?
Yeah. Well, Garibaldi is a security officer. He worked on Mars. He would know these things. That's just part
Not
of...
actually from this base, but there's a reason I know this.
Uh-huh.
If you get the chance to read the Babylon 5 comics, there's a 3-parter with Garibaldi and Sinclair on Mars.
Oh.
And this is how he knows about the base. And it turns out Talia was there too.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about that at another time.
Yes.
Several seasons down the road. Because that plays a part in that. Now, you don't need the comics to get it, and it's pretty much just left, as you said, it's sort of his job to know stuff like this.
Yeah.
But we actually get some of the details out of the comics, and they are good comics, and they're considered official canon.
I'm sure that Garibaldi knows lots of dirty little secrets.
Oh, yeah.
And he's really good at keeping them to himself, too.
Until they're needed.
Right.
Which makes a great security officer.
Yes.
But she is going to do what she can to help.
Yeah.
She's not making any promises, but we'll find out.
Well, as we've seen before, she's a compassionate individual and does genuinely at this point want to be accepted and wants to be treated well as part of the crew.
Right. So we switch back to Dr. Tasaki.
Yes.
On their second mission. Now, well, Tasaki ignores Susan.
Yes.
She gives him very explicit instructions on the kind of flight plan.
Right.
She points out that Star Furies cannot go into atmosphere. They're not atmospheric capable.
Right.
Don't go too low or you won't have any cover. And, of course, he proceeds to ignore her.
Yes.
So, naturally, he gets hit with a missile.
Yeah, for his trouble, he gets 3 missiles set up as 6. 2 of which were very well fended off by the Star Furies in orbit.
Uh-huh.
But the third one doesn't destroy the ship, but it does damage it somewhat.
Yeah, and now what the Star Furies are doing, and some people have complained, they're not necessarily just trying to shoot the missiles, though in one case they actually do hit. But the pulse cannon blasts, there is, it's like phase, with a PPG, there is some sort of mass to that from what I understand.
Yeah.
So you've got that blast. It's interfering with the targeting of the missiles. The impact in the atmosphere itself is creating a disturbance as well. So, sort of a wide pattern blast to create a pattern to help him get away.
It would be chaff.
More or less.
Yeah.
Yeah, based on the impact of it with the denser atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. Tasaki should have lost his flight status over this. As a matter of fact, he should have been probably court-martialed because Susan gave him direct orders before he left and told him to get out of there while he was flying, and he continued to ignore her. This guy is a loose cannon. He's dangerous.
Yeah, but he's a scientist. I didn't think he was... I know he's attached to Earth Force, but I didn't think he was military.
In any case, I'll tell you what, he put not only his own life in danger and a very expensive shuttle, but his two companions on the shuttle, not to mention the Star Fury pilots.
Yep. And Susan has her own nice little way of reminding him of this.
Oh, yes.
As they wait to be towed back.
Survey 1 to Babylon Control. We're clear. Returning to base.
Confirmed, Survey 1. Upon arrival, you will report for debriefing. And just one more thing. On your trip back, I'd like you to take the time to learn the Babylon 5 mantra. Ivanova is always right. I will listen to Ivanova. I will not ignore Ivanova's recommendations. Ivanova is God. And, if this ever happens again, Ivanova will personally rip your lungs out. Babylon Control out.
Pregnant pause.
Civilians. Just kidding about that God part. No offense.
And we just got a question answered. When she mutters under her breath, civilians.
Yes.
So he wouldn't be subject to court-martial. The Babylon 5 mantra.
Yes. So
in the debriefing, Tasaki points out where it's coming from. It's coming from a crag or a canyon, both the beacon and the missiles. It's described as a probable, well, nothing probable, but it's described as a possible first contact situation.
Yeah. A chasm 5 miles deep. They can't penetrate with their sensors, but they know something must be down there because they're getting missile fire.
Right.
So Sinclair decides it's time to go down and check it out in person, him and Ivanova.
Boy, he's pretty much making up an excuse to go.
No, I don't. I can't agree with that. He is first of all, in my mind anyway, I respectfully say, he is the most experienced pilot on the station. Number
Agreed.
1. Okay. Number 2, if it is a first contact situation, he's naturally going to be in charge of it because that's his job as a commander. And
also agreed.
And add to that, the station is in clear and present danger, which requires his personal attention to this.
Also agreed, and you're forgetting another item. First contact situations require 2 senior officers.
Right.
And he and Ivanova are practically rubbing their hands in glee to get down there for it.
Well, you can't blame them.
Like I said, they're just whipping out the excuses to go. So yes, they're gearing up to go.
Yes.
Switching back to the Garibaldi story for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Water. Never touched the stuff myself.
Yeah. W.C. Fields with a Russian accent.
Well, we have to hit the quote. Londo gives Garibaldi some uplifting advice.
Yes.
Get you yet? Mr. Garibaldi, off duty, I see. Water. Fascinating. I never touched the stuff myself. Cat, the usual.
Is there something I can do for you, Ambassador?
Yes. Attend. As a young Centauri, I developed a preoccupation with the female of my particular species. I went to all the finest clubs, watched the most exotic Centauri dances. Now, one day, I was angry and upset. But I went to the club, I sat, watched the show, but never saw it. I just sat and stewed. Suddenly, I looked up, and this beautiful dancer is leaning down over the stage and looking right into my eyes. And she said, "Whatever it is, it can't be that bad." And then she kissed me. Right here. Mr. Garibaldi, whatever it is, it can't be that bad.
You try and kiss me and I'll break your arm.
We're not that close, Mr. Garibaldi.
And the dancer?
Oh, I married her. No. Yes. That day. The next day, I woke up, I saw her in the light of day, sleeping against my arm, and I decided I would rather chew off my arm than wake her up.
Oh, that's sweet.
No. She had a voice that could curdle fresh milk. Londo? Yes, dear. Londo! Coming, my darling. I'll be right there, my love bug. You looked as if you needed a friend.
I did. Thanks.
You're welcome. Now, I go to spread happiness to the rest of the station. It's a terrible responsibility, but I have learned to live with it.
I had to let that one run long, just because it was such a great. Londo, I think, has got some of the best lines in this episode here.
Yeah.
So, which one of the wives do you think that he was referring to?
Well, let's see. We got famine, pestilence, and death.
Muriel, Daguerre, and Timov.
You know, I don't know which one you would say, but I'm wondering if either perhaps just making up a story, or is there an ex-wife in his past?
I don't think this is an ex-wife. I think this is Timov. Just the Londo. I can't do that very well with my stuffy nose tonight, but just the way it talks, that you almost think Londo patterned it after.
Yeah.
After
could
her.
Be. Well,
I think it was Timov, which is vomit backwards.
I have a tough time picturing any of those as dancers, but oh well.
Remember, this was back when he was a young man.
Oh well, it's very true.
But you notice, you notice Londo still manages to stick Mike with the tab.
Yeah, typical Londo. I would have been disappointed if that hadn't happened.
Yep. But there was something we had forgotten to mention.
Yes.
Sinclair saw this image in the middle of nowhere of this alien saying, "Help me."
Yeah, holographic image of an unidentified alien, unidentified species, asking for help.
And he just kind of thought it was stress.
Mm-hmm. However, after this exchange with Londo and Garibaldi, Londo sees the same image. Londo sees the image.
Correct. And wonder why.
Yeah, there's got to be some connection.
In the meantime, we have Commander Sinclair doing his insane, crazy, mad power dive to the planet.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's crazy like a fox, though. Because he knows he's got a cover fire being laid down for him, and he knows in order to get where he needs to go, he's got to move.
Well, if he was crazy enough to take on Minbari battle cruisers with a Star Fury, yeah, he's got to be a good pilot.
Yeah. So they get through, and Ivanova does a quick scan and discovers that the atmosphere in this cavern, there's a landing port.
Yes.
A place to land. She does a scan and discovers that the atmosphere is mostly carbon dioxide, and that the gravity is 75% of 1G.
Earth norm.
Yes.
Right. So they don't necessarily need environmental suits, but they do need some sort of respirator breather apparatus.
Right.
And they exit out, turn the corner. A little bit easy to find for something that's supposed to be so advanced, but that laser trap.
Mm-hmm.
I'll admit, Sinclair was pretty clever getting through.
Yeah, well, if you watch what he did some deductive reasoning. He of course saw the corpse sitting there and reasoned, okay, there is a trap here somewhere. Then he tossed the rock through and got a barrage of lasers, tossed another rock through, and then started timing how long it would take for these lasers to recharge.
Right. Which reminds me, next time I build a laser trap, I've got to put a random... I need a random generator on the recharge.
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Okay. So, at any rate...
They get across.
They do. Okay, now here's a problem I have. If they went to the trouble of mentioning that the gravity there was 75% the gravity as it would be on Earth, I didn't see any difference whatsoever.
Well, bear in mind, CNC is 1/3 Earth gravity.
Yeah.
Because it's so close to the axis, and you never see any indication that that's at a lower than normal gravity.
But,
and a more important issue is, how does Sinclair, if he was born and raised on Mars, and we've had a couple of generations now of Martian humans, with Mars's significantly lower gravity, getting around easily at Earth normal 1G, you would think would be an issue.
Yeah. Well, I think it would be, except that in science fiction it has been accepted that gravity is gravity. Plain and simple, because it's just too expensive to not have gravity.
So it's an area where I have to, and have no real problem doing so, suspend my belief.
Yeah.
Though next time I think they might want to look for a back door.
Probably wouldn't hurt. Okay.
But they turn a corner, and welcome to Krell.
Holy moly. Do you think this might have been an intentional nod to Forbidden Planet?
It absolutely was an intentional nod to Forbidden Planet.
Okay. Because funny thing, Chrissy and I, my daughter and I decided to introduce myself to Forbidden Planet, and not long before that I had watched this episode for the first time, and watching Forbidden Planet is like, whoa, this is the same.
Yes, it is. It is not an accident.
Okay.
It is not an accident. They had gone around. Apparently they had a few different options, and for what the interior there of the Great Machine would look like, and that was the one that just worked. Yeah, they borrowed just a lot from Forbidden Planet for that particular, and that was a great homage to it.
Yeah, but judging by those machines, that planet, Epsilon 3, could do a heck of a lot more damage than it was trying to do, if it wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, if it's borrowing off of Krell, then you're talking something that's 20 miles to the side.
Yeah.
We go back to Londo. His place is a wreck.
Yeah, what's going on with that? Is the maid off?
I don't know. I know we haven't seen Veer in quite a few episodes, so...
So is Veer not only a executive assistant, but he's also the maid? I don't know.
It sure seems like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we've got to do another Londo quote.
Oh, gosh, you betcha.
All I have to say before we play this is I have no idea how any of them kept a straight face through this to get through it. If there's an outtake to be seen, this is one of the outtakes I would want to see.
Yes.
Come. Ah, Delenn, what can I do for you?
I was taking my friend on a tour of the station and thought I would introduce you. Dral, this is Ambassador Londo Mollari of the Centauri Republic. Ambassador Mollari, this is Dral. For many years, my mentor and teacher.
I am honored.
Thank you. I hope we are not intruding.
Oh, no. I was just doing a little studying.
Oh.
These Earthers. I try to find out as much as I can about them to try to make some sense of them, but it never seems to come together.
There do seem to be a mass of contradictions.
Exactly my point. Here, 6,000 years of recorded history, a history that includes remarkable composers, astonishing symphonies. But what is the one song that half of them sing to their children generation after generation? You put your right hand in, you put your right hand out, you put your whole self in, and you turn yourself about. You do the hokey pokey, you give a little shout. That's what it's all about. It doesn't mean anything. I have been studying it for 7 days. I had the computer analyze it. I swear to you, it does not mean a thing.
We've come at a bad time, haven't we?
No, not at all. Here, sit. I'll make some hot jala.
I rather enjoyed the song.
Don't tell him.
You're sure?
Trust me.
So,
at least it wasn't Little Bunny Foo Foo that they did.
well, I'll tell you what, as a music educator, I really appreciated that scene. It isn't about anything. That's what it's about.
Yeah, but the whole exchange, it is just utterly priceless.
Yeah. Yesterday, I had a student bring to me a song and wanted to know what a couple of lines in the song meant.
Uh-huh.
And it was do da do da do da do da do. And I said, it doesn't mean anything.
Just don't play I Am the Walrus for them then.
Oh, gosh.
Goo-goo-ga-joob.
Cuckoo, ka-choo, cuckoo, ka-choo. You bet. I Am the Walrus. That's a cool song.
Oh, my. Mike is getting some information back from Mars.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, basically no information.
Yeah.
So, Talia does her best. She really does her best to try and help, but to no avail. The most she's able to do is get some information that Lise is not on the survivor list. But she's not on the casualty list either, so.
Well, they don't have access to the casualty lists.
Right.
So we're still up in the air. Now, when Talia comes into CNC to tell Mike about this, he appears to be in command and giving orders. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay, now we're going to get back into the rank thing. I wish we had brought JP on tonight.
I don't think this is so much of a rank thing as next week.
Right.
And we'll explain the JP reference when we wrap up and close, which we're getting very close to doing.
Yes, we're very close to that. If Mike is a chief, which is a non-commissioned officer, probably
why is he
equivalent to perhaps a sergeant. He is issuing orders in CNC. Why is there not another officer?
Good question.
There is a definite lack of command structure on this station.
At this point, at least.
Yes.
That would be like Worf taking command of Enterprise if both Picard and Riker were gone.
Yeah, because Data was the second officer.
Yeah, Corwin would be more likely to be in command.
Yeah. So
Lieutenant Corwin.
Well,
he's not a lieutenant yet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, he's the second Louis. He gets promoted to first Louis.
Yeah. So, that's just one of the questions I have. Why would Garibaldi be in command?
Starring role.
Right. Well, okay. Yeah. That's the practical answer, but that's not.
Yeah, it's the real answer.
Right.
Let's return to rescuing Varn.
Okay.
And who is Varn, you might ask, my dear listener? Varn is the alien in The Great Machine.
He's the alien that contacted Sinclair.
We just haven't gotten his name yet.
Right. Contacted Sinclair, contacted Londo, and that sounded threatening when Sinclair and Ivanova stumbled on him.
Okay, this is going to be my turn to disagree with you this time. It didn't sound so much threatening as desperate and in pain.
If someone
not
says
not so much of a threat as in I am going to destroy it, but if you don't help me, I won't be able to keep it from being destroyed.
That's not what I heard. What I heard him say was, if you do not help me, you are all going to die.
The tone and the context that he was saying it.
That is a threat.
Yeah.
Well, see, and then it cuts away
I'm on
to a
DVD,
commercial.
So I didn't have.
And when it comes back, we get the context.
Of course, yeah, it's cut in to be a bit of
where the commercials are cut in.
But when you get that context,
it's
clear he's not making a threat. He's pleading for help. That there's obviously something very wrong. And in fact, Susan runs down the whole list of dangers and threats involved, and everything that could possibly go wrong with that Russian thing. Just so everyone's up to speed on just how incredibly dumb they're being.
Can I bring up a point here?
Please.
Have we thoroughly established that Susan Ivanova is a Russian?
Oh, yes.
Now, I don't know. Maybe I'm out of line here, but at this point, I'm a little bit tired of being reminded of it.
I think it's a sort of a combination of her sense of humor and wearing it on her sleeve, and don't forget Straczynski's parents were Russian immigrants, so it's something that he really identifies with.
Well, and I understand that, but in every show, it's a Russian thing. Oh, I'm Russian. We are used to suffering. Russian this, Russian that, Russian this. If the name isn't enough, Ivanova is Russian for Johnson, for crying out loud. I think we've established this. It's time to let it go.
Well, I think we do. I think from second season on, we more or less do. But they do bring him back. They're heading up to Babylon 5, and you notice they have a breathing apparatus on the alien when they're in their shuttle.
Yeah, is he getting O2 therapy? Is he getting O2 therapy?
No, it's sort of the exact opposite. Presumably, they loaded up on the native atmosphere.
Okay.
For Varn, so there would be Varn breathable atmosphere.
Did they say that? Because if they did, I missed it.
They did not say that directly.
Okay.
JMS has made reference to it, though.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I'm not being particularly clever. I'm sort of cheating and going off some Straczynski info.
Yeah, I see. And I didn't have a chance to look that up, so I'm glad you did.
Yeah, and now we get back to your being annoyed about Mike being in charge, because I guess in one respect we kind of get the reason. There is something big coming through the jump gate.
Yeah. And we get to be continued.
Yep. We get something big coming through the jump gate, and then we get the closing credits.
Yes, and to be continued, I would certainly hope so.
And it will be continued. It will be continued with great class and style, I would say.
Yes. Which brings us to the close of this particular episode.
Uh-huh. As far as this particular episode, if we pulled out our old likes and dislikes, I would have to punt, because there is so much to like about it. Everything from Londo's quotes to the Babylon 5 mantra, to just the excellence of storytelling. I mean, this was a story where the storytelling itself was a pursuit of excellence.
Oh yeah, it was a very tight episode, and even the plots. Well, it's a show unto itself, while at the same time being part of a two-parter. It's really, really neat. Now, don't get me wrong, picking on Ivanova and the Russian thing. That was very tongue-in-cheek. I agree with you there. I didn't really have anything in the episode that I can say that I disliked.
No. The weakest part of it was the setup for some of the Mars stuff, and even that, really, as we find out as we go through this episode, not only is it solid storytelling, but it's really establishing stuff that is going to be significant to the main plot for years to come.
Oh yeah.
So I would definitely agree. There's not much here to dislike.
So well,
now you had mentioned
yes,
someone named JP.
Yeah, a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, thanks to Facebook and podcasts and Twitter and other things that we're involved with. Yes, and he lives out west in the desert. And he is a retired colonel from the United States Air Force. And we were talking back and forth about some military issues. And JP stepped forward and said, well, if you have questions about military things, I'd be glad to jump on and help out.
Indeed.
So in our next very exciting episode of the Babylon Project podcast, we will have a guest host with us, because we have some military issues coming up in the next episode. And I think it'd be kind of neat to have JP help us out with those.
Yeah, and we don't be surprised if we get a little distracted into some of the relationships with, command structure, like in Eyes or Survivors.
Yeah, we might sidetrack a little bit.
Because he did help clear out some of the command structure for Eyes.
Yeah.
For those who haven't seen, we see Earth Force military functioning as a military force here.
Yes.
So,
well,
we
there it
have
is.
Definitely talked this one through.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. This is a fun episode.
Yep. It like I said, it is a fan favorite. Actually, this Babylon Squared and Chrysalis, all three, really, really are. And I am definitely looking forward to the wrap-up of the season. Well, folks, we would love to hear your thoughts. We would love to hear your comments. And, wow, I am literally running out of things to say, and my wife would never believe that if she heard me say that.
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we let the lady at the end of the show tell us where to get a hold of us and all that good stuff.
That sounds like an excellent idea, Jim. So,
all right.
So, no boom today, Jim?
No boom today. Boom tomorrow?
Yep. There's always a boom tomorrow.
Always. Good night.
Good night, Fritz.
Podcast terminated. Thank you for listening to the Babylon Project podcast. You can email Raul and Jim at the Babylon Project podcast at gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at the Babylon Project Podcast. On the internet, we are at babylonprojectpodcast.wordpress.com. To subscribe to the podcast, you can find us on iTunes, or you can subscribe to the RSS feed on the webpage.